guys, it's Hannah and I'm here today for a review video that I'm going to do on the book The Siren. So like I said, I'm doing a review video of the book The Siren by Kiera Cass. So I'm going to do a non-spoilery section and then I'm going to hop into a spoilery section, so stay tuned. So for the non-spoilery section, I'm going to do first. So what this book is about sirens, obviously, hence the title, The Siren. So it starts off with a girl that this is about 80 years ago, and her name is Kaylin, and she is on a boat, and her family are together, and she's about 16 years old, or 16, 17, I think. She's under 18. And they're on a boat and they hear this singing and it's like this magical singing, so they go outside and they find out what it is and they are lured outside. And while they are hearing this magical singing, they are getting this idea that they really need to be in the water. And Kaylin tries to fight it a little bit, but eventually she gets lured in, and as everybody else is jumping into the water, she jumps into the water, and the water is so cold that it wakes her up, and she is shocked, and she is fighting the singing and the water, and it kind of shakes it out of her, and she hears a voice in her head saying, "Do you really truly want to be saved?" And she says, "Yes, I do." And so the sirens, which are the singing girls in this, they pull her out of the water and they ask her, "Do you really truly want to be saved?" And she goes, "Yes." And they're like, "You'll never see your parents again, you'll never see your family. Do you still want to be saved?" And she feels torn because she wants to help them and she sees them drowning. She's all these people drowning. But she says, "Yes, I want to live." So they tell her what they are, which is they are the sirens, and that they serve her. And her is referred to as the ocean. They are serving 100 years in her servitude. The ocean needs human sacrifice to survive and serve the earth and to help feed the earth. So they sing and lure people to their death to feed the ocean, which in turn helps feed the earth. So they're like, do you accept this? Do you want to be a part of us? Because you can either choose to do this for 100 years or go back to your family, which basically means go back and die. And so she accepts it, that she is going to be a siren, and then the story jumps forward 80 years, and that is where our story begins today. And how it starts off is that Kaylin has, for the past 80 years, been a perfect siren to the ocean, and she's not had a lot of complications, she's not rebelled, and she is sick of living her life for the ocean, and she wants to start living her life as it is, because she still wants to obey the ocean, but she is realizing that she is not actually living, she is just existing. So the ocean's rules are no wives, no mothers, and no exposing yourself to humans, which means no talking, because as soon as they open their mouth, they lure people into the water, and that is what their voice is for, so they have to rely on sign language. So that is my section for the non-spoilery section. That is a summary. I did give it a 3.75 to 4 out of 5 stars. This is a really good book. It's a very fast, easy read. I love Kiera Cass's writing. If you guys have never picked up her books, please do so, because they're just such an enjoyable read. They are by no means any great literature, but her writing style is so vivid. Kaylin in this book is very depressed through a lot of it, and she has to work through that angst of taking people's lives. And so her working through that, and you can tell a really good writer when you read a book and when I was reading this book and I was reading Kaylin's perspective, she was so sad in this that it would affect my own moods, because you put yourself into the book so much because of how amazing the writing is. And I love, it's a love-hate relationship, because I hate that it affects me so much because it messes with my own life, but it's so good to experience that and to really be into the book. So that alone, besides the storylines and stuff, and the storyline was very good. It kept me interested and it kept me coming back, and I didn't catch some of all the twists and stuff in here. Most of them were pretty easily found, but there was a few other ones that I didn't catch on that were going to happen. But it's very good and easy to read, so I definitely recommend picking this one up if it sounds like something you would enjoy. So we are going to go into the spoilery section now, so if you haven't read the book, or you don't plan on it but you want to know more about it, stay tuned. But if you haven't read the book and you don't want to be spoiled, leave now. Are you guys gone? Are you gone? Are you gone? Really, this is a good book. I don't want you to spoil. Please go. Okay. I'm going to get into the spoilery section now. I'm going to go set this down here. Yeah, I'll put it up there. Yeah. Okay, so with Kaylin, her scrapbook, this was one of the first things that I was like, what? If I was in her position, I don't know if I would want to carry that much guilt, but I guess it's a way for her to manifest her guilt into a physical object that is easily for her to control. And I feel like this in her book, when she's trying to scrapbook her victims, that this is her way of mourning them and then trying to move past them. But she never actually gets the move past part of it. So that's kind of like you killed yourself over dealing with all of these tragic lives and mourning them, and then you're still not letting it go. And I think she kind of missed a key aspect there in it, but I can understand psychologically why you would want to mourn them to move past them. I just don't think she did it very well. Okay, so now I'm gonna get the scrapbook out of the way. That was kind of a weird thing that I wanted to talk about that I didn't have a good place to talk about that before. But I'm gonna get into her sisters. So I love that they do have the sister group, and they have like a little family for them, but it's not quite the same. I feel like Kaylin goes miles and miles above for her sisters, and her sisters give like an inch back. At least in the beginning. If you've read the book, you know that they are much better at the end, but I feel like they barely care that she's like miserable, and they're like, screw you, I'm doing my own thing, like I'm living my life, I don't know why you're not living yours. And we're gonna go out and, like, they kind of alienate her. Like, I know she alienates herself, but they also alienate her in return because she's a little different. So that kind of bothered me, that Kaylin would do anything for her sisters, but the sisters wouldn't, they would, like, try, but not try that hard. So that was an issue that I had with the sisters as characters. I wish that it would have been a little bit more give and take, but again, that's a little more reality too. It's not going to be always a perfect relationship. I did really like, I think her name was Aisling or something. Can we just talk about Kiera Cass? Like, why do you gotta give me weird ass names? Please, please, just do normal names. I don't understand. Like, it doesn't add that much to the book that you have weird, unique names in there. But anyways, I digress. Aisley was an interesting turn of events because I wasn't expecting her to do this. First of all, I love that she was by herself, and I thought Kaylin would have been better by herself because her sisters, like, she was constantly comparing herself to her sisters, and I get you need companionship, but I think if she would have been by herself, she would have been a lot stronger. With her being around her sisters, I think it made her weaker because she constantly compared her happiness to their happiness. When you're by yourself, you don't have that comparison. So, again, I'm getting sidetracked here. Aisling was an interesting turn of events in this because she actually broke the rules, and I really was expecting her to be caught by the ocean and, like, being gobbled up, like, by the ocean for disobeying. But she didn't. She, like, made it pass, and no one found out until, like, the very end, or the ocean didn't find out until the very end. But I thought that it was really cool that they did have a siren who broke the rules and still managed to be, like, obeying the ocean and still served out her full sentence. So I was hoping that that would affect Kaylin a little bit more, but it didn't end up affecting her the way it was. It wasn't that detrimental to the story as I thought it was, besides giving Kaylin the confidence she got from Aisling that she made it through. Without that, I don't think that she would have pushed enough to be able to do something for her instead of do something for the ocean. I also really liked that the ocean was an actual being, that you could hear her voice, and I've never had the ocean be a character before in a book, so I thought that was really unique and really fun to have that in there. And then I did like the aspect that if you touched any water, like snow falling or rain or a mud puddle, that you could also hear the ocean, and I thought that was so cool and so, like, such a good way to really show that the world is fully connected throughout all of it. So I liked that aspect of this book. I also liked that it was a complicated relationship with how the ocean was. She was a villain, but she was also a caring mother, and it was kind of a contradictory character personality, but I really liked that because it made her more complex and more interesting, and she wasn't as easy to figure out as normal characters were. So I really liked the complexity of the ocean being a character and what her personality was as well. I'm gonna keep going on the dissecting of the characters here. Caitlin did bother me a little bit when I was reading it, just because she was so down. I understand the grief that she went through dealing with taking all of those lives and her missing her parents and her family that she could barely remember, but it just was like, you have to do something for you, and she did finally get that. I wanted her to get to it faster. She was constantly serving the ocean, and she was like, her love for the ocean was just a little bit off for me because she loved the ocean so much, but it didn't make sense why she loved her so much. She almost imprinted on her like a new mother, but it wasn't quite the same because it was such a mean relationship, and it was such an unhealthy relationship between the two of them. And it does show, like, and they realize it as an unhealthy relationship in the book, which does help, but I think it's important to show the unhealthy relationships in books and just have them realize it, because then it makes it more like reality. But the relationship didn't quite make sense to me for such strong feelings they had for each other versus her and the other, or the ocean and the other sirens didn't have that such a strong connection. And I know that it was because Kaylin went to go visit the ocean when she didn't have to, but that still doesn't quite make it right either. The next character I want to talk about is Akinli, or Akinli. Again, another weird name back here, cast, but Akinli or something, whatever his name is. I'm so glad that they made him the character the way that they did, because Akinli was such an offbeat character to begin with. It didn't sound like he really can, like, fit in that well with the college crowd. He was a little offbeat, so, and I think Caitlin definitely was offbeat, so I love that dynamic between the two of them, but he also was kind of a social butterfly, so it could pull her out of her shell a little bit. And then I loved that they connected through what they would have connected in her original timeline. So her growing up, what she would have been into, he was still into, and it was like vintage retro. And I liked that there was that connection, and they pulled in her past life as well with that. I loved that he continued to pull her out of her shell even when it was really hard. Not knowing sign language and going off of like her reactions to things and how she moves her hands and things like that. I liked the whole aspect, and I liked that it was a lot of interpretation on this part, and it was a lot more effort than just talking to someone. So I really liked their dynamic together. When she moved away from Akinli after one date because she was afraid that everything was going to go downhill, I was so disappointed in her, because I'm like, the whole point was for you to do something for you, and then you are straight up bailing. Like, you tried it like a little bit, like you stuck your toe in and you freaked out and you ran away. So that bothered me a little bit that she didn't actually try, but I get it that she was trying to protect the secret and stuff, but she could have at least stuck it out a little bit longer. And then that's where it really bothered me with the sisters, is that they were not supportive, and I know that they didn't know what was going on, but they, like, if you've lived with someone for like 80 years, you should know when something has changed their life dramatically and no one had a clue. Like, they had an inkling of a clue, but they didn't also try to pry and get to know. And, like, how can you spend your life, that long of your life, with someone and not, like, want to know about their life? So that bothered me, that the sisters kind of were like, whatever, and they were, like, mad that they had to move and were acting like petulant teenagers, which they were. I think that's another good aspect that we have to talk about, is that they were teenagers in this, and just because they lived this long, like, they do earn some maturity points, but it's not, they're still teenagers, you know, like, they never actually grow up. And speaking of maturity points and how long they live, can we talk about how the heck did they afford everything? Like, where did they get the money? Did they, like, collect it from things being thrown in the ocean? Did they collect it from, like, people losing stuff in the ocean? Like, I don't understand how they got money and what they did to be able to move across the country and get these places with cash, and how they survived, because they can't talk and no one had a job in this. So I wish that that aspect would have been put into thought, because it was not mentioned at all. Like, they just picked up and moved and they had a car and they'll magically have all of this money for apartments and houses and stuff. So that part really bothered me throughout the entire thing, because I was like, how are you doing this? But anyway, getting back on track with the storyline here. So when Kinley came into the picture, Caitlin kind of realizes that the only thing that she's ever wanted was to be in love and to love someone, and not just the ocean. She realizes that's not enough, and I love that there's that, like, realization in her head, and that she's kind of shoved off her feelings on the ocean, that in an unhealthy way, that that's not exactly fulfilling for her. But that's what, like, kind of stirred it all up, is that she realizes that she should really be doing something for herself. So when they moved away, they were coming upon another feeding, and the feedings, as you guys know, take a lot out of Caitlin to go through with. So Caitlin going, and they, right before the feeding that the ocean has to do, they get a call for her new sister. So they go and rescue this woman who was cinder blocked and thrown into the ocean by her father, and it's very traumatic for the new sister in the group, and she wants to be saved, and she wants to never see her family again because they were awful and they tried to kill her, and because she was not a boy. And it's such a heartbreaking story, but, like, it's good. Like, she even said in the book, like, did you recruit her because you thought that she was gonna make me better, like, pull me out of my funk? And she said a little bit, but this one also really needed saved. And that one is so great that we're seeing her come into it, but that's like another tidbit I think that might have been a filler in the book. It was a very interesting point of view, but it didn't really affect Caitlin's storyline that much. Besides the fact that it pulled away the other girl who got attached to the new girl, which in turn made it better for, like, someone to be friends with her. So, because before it was then just the three of them, and then Aisley before lived in the cottage away from them. So I'm not really sure why the new girl was in the mix of things, but I did like her add in. I just wish that she was a little more connected with Caitlin and how in her storyline a little bit, because she always kind of felt like the odd side character that didn't really matter. But the first feeding, especially with the new girl, Caitlin sings and she sees the cruise ship that they are sinking, and the bride and groom come whooshing down and into the water, and she clams up. And it's because she realizes that she wants that love so desperately, and these people just got it, and now we're ending their lives, and it breaks her heart. So she stops singing, which only makes the bride drown faster. Like, she is drowning, and it's drawing it out, and it's not blissful for her like it normally is when they sing. And they have to force her to sing because they're afraid that the ocean is going to kill her. And so she, like, pauses for a few minutes and then starts singing again, but she is miserable. And she blames the ocean, and she's now directing her anger correctly towards what, instead of her, internally she is blaming the ocean, and she knows that this is why she has to do this and why she's taking lives is for her. So she gets angry at the ocean and she says, I hate you, and she swims away, and she just swims. She's not thinking anything, and she realizes she is swimming towards Port Clyde, which is where Akinley is from. And she like realizes this, and she's on the beach, and then all of a sudden Akinley is magically there. So Akinley rescues her and brings her in, and he brings her into his home, and realizes after talking to him, well, him talking to her, I guess, that he had recently lost both his parents, and then that was heartbreaking for him. So she allows herself 24 hours of like a treat to see him, and then she knows she has to leave him. So they are going out, and he shows her his world in this small little town that everybody knows. And at the end of the 24 hours, he brings her back to his house where he grew up, and that is now his because his parents are gone. And he goes, I don't know what trouble you're into, but I want to help you, and you have a place here. And she's like, okay, if Akinley can do it, and Akinley could see her daughter and her granddaughter and watch them grow up and still serve and no one finding out, I can do this, I can be with him. And she believes in it for half a second, and he kisses her. And it's such a sweet kiss, and it's her first kiss, and then afterwards she says, wow. And then everything kind of falls apart because she spoke, and she realizes her mistake right away, and he gets a glazed look over her face, or over his face, and he is drawn to the ocean, and she pulls and pulls and tries to hold him back, and nothing is stopping him from going into the ocean. He is transfixed, he is ready to be lured, and he gets submerged in the water, and she's still tugging on him, and she's thinking, please don't take his life, please don't take his life. And the ocean is saying, he heard your voice, he's mine now. And she says, I will give you 1,000 more. And this is such a big suggestion for Kaylin to make because of how heartbreaking it is for her to sacrifice people's lives for the ocean. And she's like, please, please just let him go. So the ocean releases him, and she pulls him back on land and lays him on the ocean, and he is unconscious, and she kisses him, and she is just devastated because she knows she has to leave him. So as soon as she like makes sure he's okay and he's still breathing, she goes back in the ocean, and the ocean swarms her and pulls her back in with the currents and says, what were you thinking? You broke the rules, and I should kill you for this. And Kaylin's thinking, please kill me because I know I can never go back to him, and that is going to break me enough as it is. I can't handle not ever seeing him ever again. And the ocean says, well, I can't handle that. I love you too much. You are like my own daughter, so I am sentencing you to another servitude of 50 years. And this breaks down Kaylin because she is only 20 years away from hitting her mark, and she can be free of having to kill all these people, and she just added on 50 more years to her sentence, which at least she's living, but the life that she is living is not going to be a real life. She's gonna be miserable and constantly heartbroken from not being able to be with him. So this is like worse than death to her. And so she has accepted that this is her punishment for her actions, and they move off to a quiet lake house away, and she is dealing with that, and she is angry at the ocean, and she's not going back into the ocean, she's not visiting her. She is like, I'm doing the bare minimum. I'm pissed. I understand why I'm in trouble, but I'm still pissed about the situation. And she thinks, what is stopping her from killing him? He's constantly in the water, and she knows how much I care about him and how much I love him over her. And it almost makes the ocean jealous, and this is where I was talking about that it's such a weird relationship between the two, and that it's such a weird, unhealthy relationship, and that it's it's good to have that in there, but I'm glad that there's a realization at the end too, because if they didn't have the realization at the end of that it was such a weird and unhealthy relationship, that's where we would get into more trouble with, is this really the type of thing we want kids to be reading and thinking this is okay? But anyways, back to the storyline is that she makes a deal with the ocean saying, I'm gonna be the perfect siren again if you promise not to hurt him. If you promise that if he falls into the ocean that you have to spare him, that you have to push him back to land if he ever gets caught in the currents, or if he's never going to die from my singing. And she does, the ocean contemplates this and she agrees. So this kind of makes it a little better, and she kind of buoys her spirits a little bit, and she's like, I'm gonna put on a brave face for the ocean and for my sisters so I can keep true to my word, and Akeline is gonna be safe. And this all is pretty good until they have to go out and sing again. And when she's underwater, it starts a little before this, that she notices that she's getting tired and that she doesn't need sleep, but she's getting tired. And that she had a random itch on her arm, and these things remind her that she's still human, but this isn't normal and she shouldn't have been doing this, but she didn't think too much of it. The first real big step is when she's swimming and all of a sudden she couldn't breathe underneath water when they're getting pulled to the place where they're going to do the sacrifice. And so she realizes something's wrong then, and she kind of brushes it off. And then after then, she starts getting sicker, and she's like, she has a fever, and she gets really, really sick at the end. And her sisters actually are going to visit Akeline and see, or I keep changing how I say his name, Akinley? Whatever his name is. They actually go and visit him, and they see, like, they wanted to give her updates because they thought that that would make her feel better, but it turns out that he is dying. And so her and Akeline, or Akinley, are dying together, but because she is in a siren body and she's supposed to be invincible, well, not necessarily invincible, but she's supposed to be immortal for her servitude, and she's not supposed to be sick, and she's somehow getting sick. And so she's on a slower timeline than he is, but they're still both dying. So they're doing all this research to try to find out what is killing them and everything. And they find out, after begging the ocean, after doing several research projects, doing all of these research projects and doing all of the, like, spying on Akeline and trying to see what's wrong with him to try to fix Kaylin, that they begged the ocean. They're like, what aren't you telling us? And she said, it's not possible, it's not possible. This is what she's been saying this entire time that she's been sick. And she finally breaks down and tells them that they are soulmates, basically. And that not only that because he heard your voice being lured into the ocean, it's also a poison, but no one's ever survived that poison, so they never knew that this was going to happen. And that is what's killing him, and because she can't hear his voice, they are connected, that it is also in turn killing her, that she can't hear his voice. And the only way to save him is to turn her back to being a human and him hearing her human voice, and vice versa. And the ocean is like, flat out, no, I'm not doing this. She's mine, why should I give her up? And they kind of reason with her like, that's not the way you treat people. And I love that they have that, like, moral of the story type of part in it. And they're like, this isn't how you treat your loved ones. If you really love them, let them go. And don't, like, keep them captured and stuff. And she's like, and the ocean responds with is that, well, if I don't treat you this way, you'll never be a good siren. You won't serve me correctly. You'll be rebellious. And they kind of have this heart-to-heart, and the sisters really step up through this entire sickness Kaylin's in and say, I'll take over some of her sentence, we'll all split it, let her go, and let her, she's already dying, like, if this works, they are saved. If this doesn't work, at least she gets to spend her last few moments with her love. And the ocean finally lets go, and realizes that she doesn't have to hold on so tight and love a better, healthier way, and she lets go, and they drop her off, which is heartbreaking because Kaylin doesn't know. Once you turn it back into a human, you lose all of your memories. So they turn Kaylin back into a human, and they set her on the doorstep, and they write, your name is Kaylin, his name is Akinlee, and that's all that she knows, and everything else is wiped. And his family, his cousin, takes her in, and like, he remembers her, obviously, so they're really excited, and then they end up healing each other, and it was such like a perfect little ending that it was very sweet. But I really loved the whole story, and I loved that the coming around that the ocean did, and the coming around that Kaylin did too, is that she realizes that she needs to live her life for her, and then she's like, I can live my life for him, so they kind of sidetracked there. But what was really happening was that she directed her love in an unhealthy way towards the ocean, and she kind of realizes this, and then she truly falls in love after she lets go of that unhealthy love. So I think you can kind of play that to life, especially with abuse, because the ocean almost was abusing her with the way that her servitude works. So if you apply that to people who are in like abusive relationships, I think that it can really be tied to good life lessons. So I really did enjoy this book. It's such an easy, fast read. It was fast-paced, moving. Like I said, with the characters, they're so well written, and you're so in tuned with the book that you start to feel and take on the emotions the character is feeling, and that really makes the book come alive. So I really commend Kiera Cass for her writing, and she just writes so compellingly that that's such a talent, because I've read so many books that don't have that don't pull you in. So I really love her writing. Like I said, it's not like top-notch amazing literature, but it is so enthralling, and I do recommend that you guys read it. Hopefully if you are still around, you've already read it, because hello, I just told you the entire book. But it's such a good book. If you stuck around to see what the book was about and you don't care about spoilers, definitely pick it up, because I didn't touch on all of the aspects in the book. So yeah, if you guys have read this, leave a little comment saying spoilers, obviously, so that people down below don't see. But let me know what you think about it. Did you think that the ocean's relationship was as weird as I thought it was? Did you like the life lessons tied in there? What did you think of the relationship? Did you think it was too cheesy? Come talk to me all about it down below. And if you guys have any book recommendations for me that is like this book, I would love to hear them. Thank you guys for sticking through me if you've made it this far. And I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye.